felonies. I conduct hearings with, to jury trials, to murder cases. I've kind of done the gambit appeals. But one of my mentors was saying, you need to be a judge. You should aspire. And I was quite flattered. But during that era, when I came to the public defender's office, and about 1985, there were not that many women that were practicing law. There were a few. It was nowhere near as many. And not that many women on the bench.
Right.
Definitely not that many women of color. So I set about my way of practicing law. Okay. I was trained even at legal services, and I was a broadcast management major. So I had the ability, I thought, to persuade. And that's what litigation is about, the ability to communicate. I worked at legal services with the indigent on the civil side, different people from all walks of life. Right. So public defender's office was a good fit for me. I progressed from doing misdemeanors as an assistant public defender to doing felony prelims, from felony prelims to jury trials, and from jury trials in criminal court to doing capital murder cases. And I did that for approximately about 10 years, having handled a multitude of cases. I guess you probably were on the force then during that time, possibly.
20 years ago, yes.
Yes, well, that was more than 20 years ago. I've been on the bench 20 years. But
what year?
This was probably in the early 90s.
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
Early 90s, I was probably in Korea or in early 90s, Germany or Kuwait.
Well, the reason I say that is that you work a lot, even on the defense side, with police officers.
Right.
And you don't work with them as well as far as you see them. You communicate with them in the courtroom. You're looking at their work product when you're a defense attorney.
Right.
Today, I see police officers and see officers every day because they're subpoenaed in for hearings. And you get to, in the practice of law, one of the skills I think that I developed early, and it may not have anything to do with law school, it's the ability to listen to people, to sympathize and empathize with them. Okay. The kind of work I did was for several years was difficult work, but it was very rewarding. And you say, how is it rewarding representing people that kill others? But it was rewarding in that I made sure that the system worked for everyone.
Okay.
I guaranteed persons' rights. I'm proud to say I don't have anyone that's on death row that has my name behind. That is a win. I tried several cases, but to try a death penalty case was to lose one. So because of the nature of the offenses.
Wow.
So they're difficult cases, but there weren't any women doing that. And I felt like if my desire was truly to be a judge, that I needed to do the difficult work to prove that I had the skills, to prove that I was a good litigator and a good understander of the law, that I knew how to work with people. It's not just one side, it's just not the defendant you work with. You end up working with, of course, the prosecutor. You work on a team. Doing capital work with the investigator, and you have a mitigation specialist, and you have doctors, you have a variety of different people, and then ultimately you work your case, and you have to work with the prosecutor and persuade the prosecutor to give you something of settlement that will save someone's life.
Negotiation.
And sometimes you even have to talk to the family of the victim. I reflected back on that, that how I have talked to them about sparing someone's life that took the life of their loved one, and setting up not necessarily rapport, but trying to get a clear understanding with them about how they feel, and let them know that I understand it, but give someone else a chance in life that did something that was totally wrong and harmful. So it was a learning experience as just growing as a human being. That's why I said empathizing and sympathizing,
Right.
because it's two sides of understanding that's needed. So I enjoyed the work immensely. I enjoyed the science part of it. I loved to go to the medical examiner's office.
Really?
Yes, and do the science.
Oh, wow.
Ballistics, forensics was very interesting, very stimulating mentally. Those particular areas of study.
Okay.
And I know it sounds strange,
Yeah.
but I'm not going in viewing bodies, but while they're
okay.
doing autopsies.
Okay.
But discerning causes of death and the affects and making sure that all stones are unturned when you're defending someone, making sure stories match up.
I like that. That I like.
Making sure, because when someone is saying they're going to take someone's life, that is the ultimate punishment. And if that's going to be the ultimate punishment, everything must be done to guarantee that all rights are protected.
Okay. Oh, wow. So as a public defender, because I know there are a lot of indigent individuals here in the city of Memphis, and they depend heavily upon the public defender's office. I think Mayor A.C. Were you in the public defender's office when Mayor A.C. Warden was there?
Yes, Mr. Warden appointed me.
Oh, okay.
And hired me.
Okay. Well, good. During your tenure as a public defender, what do you think was your most rewarding case? Can you remember, or can you put your hat on one case that stands out in your mind that either you were able to vindicate someone, or you were able to bring to light exactly what happened?
I have some celebrated cases,
Okay.
I would say. I don't know whether they were trophy cases or anything like that, but I have some celebrated cases, some that are still being discussed. I was involved in the JD's murder case, which is a multiple homicide case, one of my first cases, and that was the first time MPD used video.
Oh.
They did video crime scene. That's when video and technology was just getting started. So they videotaped the crime scene, which was really interesting. Okay. Matching it up with the corresponding evidence, and what was so interesting, additionally, what was interesting, it was Amerasians, persons that had settled here, that spoke different dialects, Cambodian, the Malagos, and they were Vietnamese, and so I said they were from, I think it's pronounced Laos, but in that part of the country, part of the world. So that was very interesting, and the understanding the culture, understanding the importance of culture amongst people, even regional culture. And I grew from that, understanding everybody is not like everybody in South Memphis. People from North Memphis and South Memphis are different. And of course, these individuals were immigrants, and so their culture was different. And so it was up to me to try to explain certain aspects of their culture to get the acquittal that I got. Wow. So I think that was really important and very rewarding. And also the Central Garden murder case has been on several shows, and it's been a play, and I've done an interview, I guess, as late as 2 or 3 years ago, because I've obtained an acquittal. The gentleman I was representing, the persons that were first tried for the cases, my partner and I obtained an acquittal. The co-defendant was acquitted, and subsequently, I guess about 10 years later, information came up about who actually may have done the killing. And so that was very interesting in that case, that it's still somewhat ongoing. People are just starting to serve time for that offense, that homicide. It was pretty bad.
Wow.
It was an interesting story about addiction, and how addiction, it doesn't matter whether it was in Central Gardens or whether it was in North Memphis, about drugs and cocaine and crack, and families that suffer through the addiction. It's not just the addict. and that was what that case was really about. And these people were literally from one side of the track to the other. Literally.
Wow.
Literally.
One side of the track or the other.
Yes, and so I've had some cases that scientifically I've enjoyed. I had someone that had what they call multiple personality syndrome. That's what we call it now, but it's a dissociative disease, a disorder. And he was accused of killing multiple prostitutes.
Wow. So can you tell them a little bit about your court and your courtroom and what types of cases that you handle and different things like that?
Yes, the General Sessions courts in Shelby County are divided into two sections. One is the civil, which is Division 1 through 6,
okay.
And then there's 7 through 15, which handle criminal matters. That's because of the population in Shelby County being so large. In some counties, even in Davidson County, the judges handle both civil and criminal. But in Shelby County, we have sections or divisions of court that are designated for certain things. Even on the criminal side, we have some specialty courts or designated courts.
Right.
We have the specialty court everybody probably thinks about first is domestic violence.
Okay.
We have a mental health court. We have a veterans court. We have a drug court. We have an environmental court. So we have a lot of different areas of specialties, but all these courts have general criminal jurisdiction. I have had different designations.
Okay.
I did compulsory attendance for several years, which I found very rewarding.
Okay, what is that?
When the parent doesn't send a child to school.
Oh, compulsory attendance.
Compulsory attendance.
Okay.
The child is charged with truancy. The parent is charged with violation of the compulsory attendance law.
Okay.
And with that, that was very rewarding, and I discovered a lot dealing with parents and the needs of the children and the needs of families.
Right.
Not to down mothers, not to down families, but and not to down our educational system.
Okay.
That's how the courts got pulled in, because kids were just missing school.
Wow.
It was projected that if you miss a certain number of days in school, you could not pass.
Truancy.
And but it started off with just a select number of schools, and it was a pretty successful program. But then it was because there were so many middle schoolers and high schoolers committing crimes during school hours.
Yes.
And as the program developed and more schools and more focus was made in the program, it was discovered that kids from the very beginning were not taught the importance of going to school.
Right.
We didn't miss school.
I love going to school.
We love going to school.
I love
and so
going to
kids were not getting a chance to be exposed to the funness or the joy of education.
That's where everything was happening.
I know, and but it starts off at kindergarten.
Yeah, I love
we had
going
kids
to
that were
school.
missing 40 and 50 days of kindergarten at the beginning of the school year.
Wow. That's a parent problem.
Well, it's a parent problem, and that's what I came to realize, that parenting is just not necessarily natural to all persons.
Okay.
We have generational issues.
Okay, yeah.
And generational examples from one parent says, oh, well, we cut classes. Well, you can't cut classes. Now it's considered an absence. You have to enroll. You have to go to school. The school system gets paid to function by the number of kids they have in school per day.
Right.
You have to go to school to meet the minimum requirements to be able to pass.
Right.
And what I wanted people to understand in the process, especially mothers, the school system has a lot there you may need. They have psychological
Resources.
resources.
Yes.
They have psychological services. They have educational resources with learning disabilities, or kids are gifted by just the opposite. I mean, uniforms, food. At one point in time in Shelby County, kids were getting breakfast, lunch, dinner, and aftercare.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, send your kid to school. You don't want, you got a built-in babysitter that's educating your kid, and they're growing. and they're loving the joy of education.
And a lot of times, believe it or not, those meals that those children were receiving at school, because I even remember when we were coming up, they had breakfast. You could actually go to school early, get breakfast in school.
Yes.
So therefore, when you were attempting to learn and be educated, you didn't come to school on an empty stomach, because you never know the circumstances surrounding some of these young people that are coming to school. And that's how come I said, and I did say it was a parenting problem, and you were right, because of some generational issues and different things like that. A lot of these young people may not know how to be parents, or they don't have the wherewithal to know that there are resources available to them in those schools so that it can help them to, because I always tell a story. I was poor and didn't know I was poor, when I was coming up, because there was so much love. And like I said earlier, it was expected. I don't care how poor we are. The road to success is education, number one.
Yes.
So that you can be able to go out into the world and be able to deal with all kinds of people on their level, and to make your mark and make your way in society and become a productive part of society and contribute to the growth and development of your community and different things like that. So you're definitely right in that regard. So now let's get back to general session. So what do you, this is Judge Lois Lambert Ryan, Division 15, General Sessions Courts. So what types of cases do you handle? I know you told us about the compulsory, but
Well, the compulsory is now in juvenile court. They paired the compulsory with the truancy.
Okay.
So now it's been moved to juvenile court. The district attorney general decided to do that.
Okay.
So now I just have a general criminal division.
Right.
The courts handle misdemeanors,
Okay.
felony preliminary matters. We have preliminary hearings. We have trials.
Okay.
We do felony arraignments.
Wow.
We oversee the judicial commissioners who run a 24-hour operation.
Right.
You can be an our administrative duties rotate from judge to judge. In the last 2 years, we have really been concerned, and I have been concerned for the last several years, about the administration of justice, how the system is working, how, and people don't think about that. You think about people going to jail, but there is a process. And I tell people I'm a process person. How can we make this work smoother? How can we make this work properly and to the benefit of the public?
Right.
And that this experience, it may be a dark one, is one that still works smoothly. So that has been a concern, and for me to sit back, and I've been in the process in the system for so long, working in the public defender's office,
Right.
to see it progress. We have technology, and technology has changed a whole lot.
Yes, it has.
The implementation of different things in the courtrooms, getting equipment in and taking advantage of it, and understanding how technology and law and evidence relate together. I've been focused in a lot on that in the last few years, trying to keep up, because it's ever evolving, ever changing.
Yes.
Before, just looking at a videotape, from a DUI,
Right.
it's taken in the car.
Right.
We all would sit in front of the little box, breathing everybody's air. We're close. You're the closest person I've been to today.
Yeah,
We can't even get close to each other
Right.
to do those type of things. So because of the pandemic, we luckily enough we're evolving in the courts to keep going. And I like to tell people the General Sessions criminal courts have not closed during the pandemic.
Yes. I can vouch for that.
The only time we were closed was a snow day and when the water went out.
Right. They wouldn't let us back in the building.
They wouldn't let us back in the building, but because of technology, those that were in the jail at that time still got an opportunity to be arraigned. Video
arraignments.
And for their cases to be set. And the system still worked. They were able to post bonds. Things still flowed and functioned because it was something that no one knew about. We had no idea about, and it was a day-to-day growth of things, and the volumes of people, the movement of people even sitting down, how people sat.
Wow.
We just got relieved of the 3 feet distance in the courtroom between individuals. How each division of court chose to work. The district attorney general, we worked closely in the courtrooms, and the people were coming in and out and moving, and it's a people building. How that had to change,
right,
and keep the courts open and keep the system working. And I was glad to be part of the decision-making processes day to day, because we were evolving and changing day to day.
And I don't think a lot of people realize, and you know, I think they take for granted that you know, 201 Poplar, everybody know what 201 Poplar is, and they know what the lower level is, because if you come down there any morning about 9 o'clock, it's going to be packed with individuals that have to be processed, or individuals that are being called into the justice system to have whatever ruling rendered, or to have their day in court so that they can be heard. But I don't think, and I even took it for granted prior to me working down there, at the amount of work that goes into ensuring someone is afforded their due process. Because just like Judge Lambert Ryan was speaking, you know, even during the snow days, and that's one thing I do want to commend you guys on. And then the amount of cases that you're handling, that blows my mind too, when I look at, because first of all, General Sessions courts down in the lower level is Shelby County General Sessions Courts is one of the biggest court system, or it's the biggest court system in the state of Tennessee, and I don't think a lot of people know that. And the amount of cases that you guys are processing down there, and I have to take my hat off. You guys are definitely handling those cases and ensuring that, to the best of your ability, that everybody is getting the opportunity to have their due process. And I think a lot of people take that for granted, and they don't know what goes into all of that, you know. But when I look at your courtroom and Judge Anderson's courtroom and Casey and everybody else that's down there, and all of the things that they're doing to ensure that the citizens of Memphis, the citizens of Shelby County, unfortunately, I don't want to ever have to go before one of these lovely people. I don't. I can say up until this point, I've never had to go into the court system, and I hope that I never have to. The number to call is 244-6874, 244-6874. We have Judge, I keep wanting to say Judge Lois Lambert Ryan of Division 15, General Sessions Criminal Court, in the building today. And she's telling us about General Sessions and just a lot of the things that she has done, and what does it take to become a successful judge in this city, because it's a lot of people, I'm finding it's a lot of people running for judge right now. Everybody's throwing their name into the hat and all of that good stuff. But I'm also in being down in the lower level, and also over on the civil side in my other capacity. I see that it takes a lot. It takes a lot of knowledge. It takes a lot of experience. It takes compassion for people, but also wanting to hold individuals accountable to the law. And you have to be able to do all of those things to be a successful judge, and especially in Shelby County, because you're going to be handling a lot of cases. When I see some of these dockets are 200 cases on the docket, or 250, and I ain't gonna call the judge's name, but one guy be having like 280 cases on the docket, and I'd be like, wow, that's a lot of cases to try to handle at one time. But anyway, they're juggling that, and they're doing those kinds of things down there. So what do you think is a contributor to the increase in crime in this city? You sitting on the bench and you seeing all of these cases coming through, and you know, I know that there's no be all, see all, do all, but from your perspective, what do you think contributes to a lot of the woes that we're seeing in the city of Memphis? And I say that, and I'm gonna preface it with, I was watching the news yesterday morning. Carjackings have increased 60% in this city. Robberies of business have increased almost 80% in this city year to date, this day, as opposed to the same time last year. So what would you attribute some of that to from what you're seeing?
And that's the big question. That's the $1 million question.
Okay.
I've thought about it. Since I've been in this system for so long, we see generational shifts. We had a things generation. You want things and you work for things.
Right, right.
Then we have now we're in a now generation. They want it now. They don't want to wait for it. They don't want to work for it. So we have a now, we want things.
Exactly.
In my neighborhood, our families, we got to grab our kids and we got to hold them. We got to educate our kids and tell them how important education is. And the way to make education work for you is to be involved in the educational process of your child.
Yeah.
One thing that I required when I was doing compulsory attendance is for you to go to the parent-teacher conference. Don't get mad and come up to the school when somebody's bullying your child and shooting the crowds.
Wow.
If you're in the school, going into the schoolhouse, seeing what's going on with your kid on a regular basis and having communications with your child at home, communications with the teacher, communications with the principal, if they know you, then a lot of problems could be settled. A lot of problems could be settled. It is so disheartening when I have mothers that are on my docket because they got into some children's mess. And these days, when they get involved, there's always guns and firearms.
Yeah, yeah.
We have too many of our children dying. Too many of them.
That is for sure.
Too many of them shot. You know, they have a phrase for it. Adverse child acts, adverse child something or another. It's an acronym for it. And I used to laugh about it, saying, you know, you have these adverse things that happen in a child's life, so it develops their personalities, and it somewhat explains why they may be the way they are. I get it. But we got to get the basis right, the base right. And that's the family. Whether it's mama, or uncle, or grandmother. We have a lot of grandmothers raising kids. But that's always been the case.
Yes, yes,
yes. We have a lot of young grandmothers. We have a lot of young mothers. So we really have to get into the family structure. It's all right to tell your kid, play in the backyard and not the front yard.
Right, right.
It's all right to tell your kid, no, it's all right to know who your kid's friends are.
Yep.
It's okay to tell your kid, no, you don't need to be, you can't play with them.
Yeah.
You need to know who your friends are and who their people are.
Now that I think about it, you know, in our younger years, I know in mine, my movement was controlled.
Exactly.
You know, my socialization was controlled to a degree because they definitely, you know, it was nothing to say, okay, who's that boy parents? You know,
exactly.
Where he come from? You know, who
and
he
you
belong to?
Why are you going? You're going to nobody's house.
Yeah, don't go in nobody's house. Don't do that. You can stay outside, but don't go in nobody's house. You know, before we got about 11 minutes left, I wanted to get into this too. We have Judge Lois Lambert-Ryan of Division 15 General Sessions Courts in the House, and we're just kind of chopping it up a little bit, just kind of talking about where she's from. You know me, I want you, the citizens of the city of Memphis and the citizens of Shelby County, to get to know some of these individuals. You know, a lot of times it's hard to get young